I also think as we're in this new environment where when the gloves come off and you're in wartime, technical analysis becomes um, of extreme importance. And in my mindset, what you're looking at when you're looking for chart reading, right? This is just horoscopes for men to some degree. But underneath this, like when you're looking at a chart pattern, kind of think about this as like a process unfolding. Like it kind of reflects nature building on itself. This is human interaction, economic transactions behind um, these things building up. So I personally, while coming out of, master's in finance program, I'm a CFA charter holder, all of that. The dominant paradigm in terms of academia and kind of mainstream or institutional finance is random walks, normal Gaussian distributions, all of that. I don't necessarily, I obviously don't, we know it, like it doesn't hold up to empirical data on things, on how, financial markets actually work. But to put that home, like I think like a fractal representation of what's going on with these processes that these charts are trying to measure. And my point here, when you look at the technical analysis, I'm going to talk about a lower low here in a second. That is indicative of something important going on behind the scenes. All right. So what do I mean by that? I came to this observation by watching the last, 10 to 12 days since that, since the Israel and U.S. coordinated attacks on Iran commenced on February 28th, right? And I think it's been surprising to most and myself that Bitcoin has held up in terms of, like, we all know it's in a 6-month drawdown here. Um, we're talking about 50% territory, right, from that
Right.
$124,000 ish high back in, it was actually October, right?
Hmm.
Um, so it's in a major and significant retracement since then. But during this attack, notice it held up, right? It didn't sell off where bond markets have come in under pressure, equities flagging, the cues look weak. We all know what's been going on in software, et cetera. And then same thing for silver, right? I mean, gold hasn't broken out on this rally. You start to look into the other uh, uh, industrial or precious metal hybrids, silver, platinum, palladium. You can throw those in there, but mainly silver, right? It's the biggest market, most broadly used. It's super. I mean, it's not just important. It's probably critical, right? With silver paste being the best coolant for semiconductors, chips, et cetera. Um, if as a nation state, you can't win this stage of conflict between the great powers if you don't have silver as resources, right? And that's why I think we see this uh, uh, crazy. I don't know what else you this euphoria going on in silver markets
Sure.
that's really been developing over 2025 and into 2026. But anyway, so those two things. If you look at all the macro charts, Bitcoin and silver are two of the key ones that have been most notable to me since the Iran events entered this kinetic stage on February 28th. And in looking back at the charts, both of those two, remember we talked about the February 4th to 6th or 7th being a key window in terms of the geopolitical events, all the phone calls happening. There was a
Right.
lot of active discussions on the telephone there, coordination between all the major players in the game. Notice silver and Bitcoin both put in lower lows on the chart, the same overnight kind of handoff between February 5th and February 6th. Go look in other major macros. No other chart that I can find of importance shows that same observation. And while I don't want to read too much into this, if you're distilling down, doing signal processing, you can get a quant. Probably the AI can do this at the same point too. Run the Kalman filtering uh, on these time series. What this is telling me to my naked eye, these what do these things have in common? All right, we know silver. Um, is a major, one of the most important hard commodities, right up there with oil, which we're seeing obviously um, display some fireworks here in the last 1 to 2 weeks as the Strait of Hormuz situation becomes front and center. But silver is right up there in terms of the global trade, right? This stuff has to move from source or supply market to the ultimate uh, consumption demand market, which is mostly going to be cross-border trade. If it settles, through the international financial markets architecture, um, and it's basically plugged in as a global market asset at this point. Um, so on the other side of that, what Bitcoin is telling me by the co-integration here between these two time series, Bitcoin, for them to both bottom at the exact same time, like in alignment with each other, what it tells me is Bitcoin is playing in that same game that the global silver trade is playing in, if that makes sense,
Hmm.
right? So you think about what's been going on in Bitcoin since October and the Bitcoin to US dollar spot market pair. It's been liquidity taking, right? People are going up. They're in that liquidity market. They're putting more Bitcoin in, or equivalently taking more dollars out, right? Bitcoin selling is taking place. Dollars are leaving that market. It's the opposite. It's just the mirror image of that is what we've seen in silver, especially since September, October. It's been silver out, dollar liquidity in, um, by and large, right? So what you're seeing here in these two processes, those two um, shaky ponds, what do they have in connection between each other? It's that dollar measurement, the USD, which we went back before, talked about, the Spanish mill dollar. What are we trying to do here? We're trying to like condense down, put that intrinsic value between the bid and the ask, and allow economic participants to coordinate trade with each other. All of that process, you build it up on top of itself. What it what it has developed into over 600 years since Columbus set sail from Spain is this global commodities trade, is this international finance, this dollar international finance trade. Um, that's kind of been co-opted, I think, by its competition, right? We talked about
The growth of
the
Asia and
sterling
sterling. Yep.
standard, right? Yeah, it's been co-opted since 1971 by this other power, which is like this offshore dollar standard. And if we start to, just see, just through, if you squint at it, you can start to see that old world, or the, what do you call it, the Spanish mill dollar empire, the Spanish Empire, all of those antecedents that have developed through to the American economy, the colonies, and what's materializing today with cross-border trade and economic agreement between the Western Hemisphere nations, um, extending the Monroe Doctrine, not just kicking out foreign powers saying hands off, but also, in my mind, what stands out, if you wanted to add a Donald Trump corollary to the Monroe Doctrine, the same way that the original was foreign powers out of the Western Hemisphere. Roosevelt corollary says, hey, US can get involved with other Western Hemisphere nations if we think they're internally operating out of concordance with that original Monroe Doctrine. We view ourselves as having the right to go in there and root that out. That's kind of what you see embedded in the Shield of Americas, the
Right.
cartel extraction, all of that,
Right.
cartel breaking. Now, Monroe Doctrine, I think you extended another step. It's also not okay if you attempt to interfere and inhibit the growth of this, broader and Western Hemisphere mission or economic development um, on its own
Hmm.
terms and itself. That's also territory non grata. So I think that's what you're seeing in the charts right now. What you're seeing in silver and Bitcoin, um, not just the last 2 weeks and how they've traded post Iran, but also going back to that February 5th bottom, doesn't tell you everything, but by itself, that's an important signal and tells you what to watch for. I'd say, so if we're looking on the horizon, got the end of this month, the Trump visit to China, we're going to find out if everything we've been seeing and the public statements from the world leaders over the last week that we opened up the episode with, as well as that flurry of phone calls and that February 4th to February 6th window, we're going to start to find out if there was a meeting between the minds as this new world order, economic trade, consensus, all of that starts to take shape.